Hey everyone, welcome back to the Outpost. Thanks for stopping by. Well, it actually stopped raining long enough for me to be able to do another question and answer. We've had 2 days of rain and it's supposed to rain for the next 2 days. My son will be here shortly and I am hoping that we do have some clear skies somewhere in that time frame, because we're going to actually be trying to put the roof on the cabin. What I wanted to talk about today was some of the comments that I've been getting about the timbers actually touching the concrete. Well, I had mentioned before that this is my first timber frame, and I had done conventional type building before, where you actually laid blocks and actually put your sill plate down and went up from there. And I did have some comments from some contractors. They were like giving me a thumbs up, like good to go. But then I also had some other people stating that the timbers actually touching the concrete, that they would actually wick up moisture. Now I had checked, it takes about 6 months for concrete to actually dry thoroughly, and I had thought that once the concrete was dry that there wouldn't be any issues with any wicking. But when I got to checking into it farther, I just decided to go ahead and put some sort of barrier between the posts and the concrete. So what I did was, as I had mentioned before, I had ordered some aluminum. My neighbor, who is a blacksmith and a metal worker, and has done a lot of things over the years with metal, he told me that aluminum would actually last longer than metal would. So what I did was I ordered this aluminum plating, and I had it cut in 10-inch squares. The metal is 1/8 of an inch thick, and I had different choices that I could have done. I could have put some like a shingle, or I could have put some sort of rubber or anything under there. But I thought, well, over the long haul, probably my best bet would be to go ahead and order this aluminum. The only way that I could get it was in a 4x8 sheet. And so that cost me somewhere around $237 by the time that I had them cut 12 of these out, and then they sent me the extra just in case I needed to use it for something else, in like a 4x4 sheet. So, but anyway, I did get 12 of these, and as you know, most of the timbers that are my foundation, my structural posts, they are 7x7. And the reason that I ordered this 10x10 is so when I set this down, my intentions for that is to be like this. So that what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack up the posts individually about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm actually going to slide this plating right up in underneath the posts and then set it back down. This thickness will provide me a barrier, but it will also, it's not too thick, and I don't have to raise the post too high, that I can still use the same anchor bolt that's in there and be able to fasten the post back down to the footer. What I'm going to have to do with this plate, I'm going to take it up there and we're going to notch out right here. Now what this is going to allow me to do is to jack this post up just a little bit. I will be able to slide this plate in underneath. And with that groove that's notched out, it will actually slide around this anchor pin right here, or this anchor bolt, and then I can let the post back down. This angle plate, angle iron, will actually sit down on the top of this, and that gives me enough room to put my nut back up on the top and tighten it, fasten it back down to the footer. Okay, now I know that it's hard to kind of see on video, but those support posts, everywhere that they meet the ground, that footer is 24 by 24 by 12 inches deep. The ground that I'm on right here is shale, so the back half of my cabin is actually on shale. And then when you get towards the front, where it was a little bit shallower, or based on the grade of the hill here, there was a little bit of clay mixed in, but the clay, it gets hard too. So I basically had to dig down into shale to get those footers in there. And what I did was I kind of put some clay back in there to tamp it down to where I may have had a place where the concrete would run out. But these support posts, like I say, they're actually on shale, which is not going to move and it's not going to go anywhere. If I was somewhere else where you had you know, black dirt or fill dirt or something like that, I would have had to gone much deeper with these footers and probably even wider, and probably not even the type of mesh that I put in there, which would have been some sort of a rebar, several runs of it, and maybe even a couple of rises high with it. But the other home that I built was on the same sort of, or same type of soil that this is on, and I did that 25 years ago, and it hasn't moved. And it is a very large house. It's a 2-story house with a lot more weight than what this is going to carry. So I've had some comments about that, so I just thought that I would go ahead and address that right now in the comment section. Now, once I get the posts set down on this, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a coating of tar, and I'm going to use kind of like a butter knife. Okay, I'm going to coat this with tar when I slide this up underneath that. The posts were actually treated a little bit before I set them down, but then I'm going to go ahead and possibly get some linseed oil and try to soak the bottom of those posts up so far, and then I will use several coats of tar on top of that. And I've also had a few questions on the tenons, and I addressed that once before, but just in case somebody hasn't seen that, there are no shoulder joints where the tenons actually meet the mortise. And the reason that there isn't, it would have taken me a lot more work to actually cut those out, and I knew that there was going to be a wall that actually went underneath. So actually where those posts are sitting, there's going to be a wall. It's actually going to be a rock wall, which will also give those horizontal beams support underneath, which is again going to support the upper wall and the upper beams and the roof. So there's going to be more support than actually what you see, because again, this isn't complete, so you don't really have the whole picture in your mind. It's not just a cabin on posts that is just going to be left like this. There will be a form walled up underneath. So there's another comment that I have been getting. So that takes care of the posts. Now, how am I going to jack this up? What I have purchased here are two 20-ton jacks. I have taken one out so that you can see the cylinder that is right here, and of course this unscrews just like any normal jack does, and then it will go up so high. The reason that I have bought two of these is because I thought it would probably be better, instead of just jacking up on one beam, I would go on the beam on each side and jack that up, because actually I'm putting pressure on both sides, and since I'm only going up 1/4 of an inch, I don't think it's going to affect the structure any whatsoever. That will give me enough room to slide that 1/8 inch plate in underneath that post with some, like I said, the tar on top of it, and be able to set it back down. So that's the reason that I bought two of these 20-ton jacks. They weren't that expensive. I actually bought these at Harbor Freight. They were like $39 a piece, but that will take care of the post and the wicking, and will give me a barrier between the actual ground and the post itself. Another question that I have had is, what type of plunge router am I using? Well, I started off with just a plain old Harbor Freight because I thought it would last long enough to do this job up here, but actually it didn't. It wore out. So I wouldn't advise getting anything machinery like that, because, you know, honestly, digging those mortises out is really hard on a machine, especially when you're pushing sideways on something that is working vertically. So you're putting a lot of pressure on the bit, so you want to get a good bit too. The first bit that I started out with was a 3/4 bit that was carbide tipped, and I did most of these, but then it began to give me problems where it needed sharpened again, and I didn't have another bit to send it off, and I really needed one, so I went and purchased a second one so that I could actually have one that I could send off and have it sharpened. But the other one was a special order. When I went down to pick this one up, this one is actually only a 1/2 inch, and you can see it right there. It does have carbide tips on it, but you know, even though the poplar is easy wood to work with, it still wears out these carbide tips because I'm digging out a lot of wood. So the other one being 3/4 actually done more at the same time. But that Bosch router, it had a few more attachments than that other one did, so I'm really liking it a whole lot better. And I think I'm going to be able to use it a lot longer than I used that one Harbor Freight, because it, you know, it was more expensive and it's a better quality item. Another question that I've had is, what kind of wood am I using in my building? Well, the most abundant tree that I have around here is poplar, and that is the tulip poplar, which is this wood right here. Okay, we have a lot of pine. There's not that many hardwoods on this 30 acres here unless I go way up on the mountain, but if I did that, I've got a 250-foot half-inch cable that I could use a block and tackle and winch those off the top of the mountain. But then you may be going up several times if it hangs up on something just to get it loosened and bring it down here. So when I did some checking around, the poplar is considered a hardwood. It's not hard based on the standards like oak and hickory and a lot of those type of woods, but it is considered a hardwood. And the fibers are a little more dense than the pine. Now, the pine is generally what people use in, you know, main construction, stick framing of commercial construction. But the poplar, like I said, I researched and it said that it was a little bit, the fibers were more dense than the poplar. So that's what I decided to use here because that's what I had the most of. I do intend on doing the siding in pine, and the reason being is because I wanted a contrast between the pine and the poplar. That way the poplar will actually stain out a little bit different color than the pine, and it will give me a darker to lighter color based on the two different woods. Now on the inside of the home you'll be able to see the full wooden structure, and on the outside you'll be able to see the full wooden structure, because that's the way that I have kind of designed and the idea that I've got in my head, which is a little bit different than the norm. Most people would put some sort of siding over the whole structure on the outside, but I have decided to put my siding between my vertical posts, so the very outside portion of the post will be exposed even with the siding, and I'm working on a barrier that will go between the posts and the siding itself, but that way it'll be kind of a Scandinavian German type architecture where you will be able to see the full frame. So I hope that that answers some of your questions on the building as far as, you know, the post actually setting on the concrete. I had some great comments come in, you know, and I try to stay open-minded and want to learn, you know, constantly to improve myself, and also, you know, trying to do a good job on the building here. I'm not a master carpenter by no means. I do understand how things go together, but this being, you know, something different than what I'm used to, I was glad that those comments came in, because you know, we do want this to last a long time. Therefore, you know, if it's important to put that barrier between the wood and the foundation, right now is the time to do that. So yeah, you know, you guys keep the comments coming in, because if it's something that I haven't thought about, you know, I do appreciate that, in order to keep me from having some trouble, you know, down the way. Now there's things that I've done around here, and if something happens, you know, well then I just fix it, you know. But anyway, I do appreciate those comments coming in. So hope this answers some of the things that y'all were interested in about what we're doing here. Hope everybody has a great day. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you up here at the Outpost in the future.